Well, welcome. As it says on the screen there, this is the CBAE workshop, Center of Business for the Environment at Yale. Your path, connecting purpose to performance. And as me, Peter Boyd, I'm a resident fellow here at CBAE, and I'll intro myself more properly in a few seconds. Just if you're still late in coming in, feel free to put these two answers to the questions. You'll see that's why people have put those in the chat already up ahead. Welcome to the session. Just a couple of quick notes to get us going on here. On diversity and identities. Diversity of people and ideas is proven to be innovation, resilience, and excellence. So it's really encouraged here, but it actually just obviously welcome it out in your life outside this room too, this virtual room. Identities you hold that are important to you are by definition important here, especially on sessions such as this. Subtleties, if you need anything said or undone to make you feel truly welcome, please let me know. It's almost better than an in real life piece here because you can private message me. So feel free to use the chat for that. Please, especially in these times, but in general, is sort of forgive, be kind to each other, be kind to me. We're trying to sort of do a large class format here for the open community. So let's be all kind to each other on that. And we did make available a little workbook. If a pen and paper is great when you can, even when we're sort of driving into this sort of online environment and we're tapping on our keyboard all day, especially for learning and thinking a bit further ahead, as we will be here, pen and paper when you can as well. Okay, and then as a general rule, I think people are sort of Zoom experts already here. Don't mind if you sort of put your camera off when I'm sort of delivering material to you, just to keep your strong connection. Mutes all around unless it's sort of what you want to speak. We'll try and call for some reactions as well throughout the time we've got together. Okay, so in just less than an hour and a half, this is what we want to do. We want to provide you, hopefully, with the ability to do three things. Get all that really matters to you on one page. And start that process, or redo it if you've done it before. Create your daily to-dos and make sure that they're deeply connected to your purpose. And then be able to draw on some tools to maximize your impact more generally and your use of time. And the link to the workbook's there, but I know that most of you, I think, have downloaded that already. And that's just the cover that you'll find if you go to that link. I just wanted to sort of say, encapsulate all those objectives into a quote. And those that know me, you sort of love a quote, try and bring them out for any occasion. I love this one here. I don't want to get to the end of my life and I've just lived the length of it. I want to live the width of it as well. So how can we help you sort of live life in full width, even when the external environment is so changing, so uncertain, and just sort of concerning in so many ways. Just quick context, there's some courses offered at Yale that I and sort of people like me teach here. It's based around sort of progressing through from sort of some leadership of oneself, your purpose, maximizing that impact. This is where we're going to sort of focus on today. That piece, I love the Maya Angelou quote, be yourself, only better. But then we also take it elsewhere in Yale into things about teams, sort of team and company purpose, team and company maximization. If you want to go far, go together. And then for those that want to lift their chins even higher, it's just like, how do you see your company within a system? How do you change that system? How do you apply system thinking principles and then hopefully be that change that you wish to see in the world? Unfortunately, these courses, things like a 6 times 3 hour session and a sort of a 24 times an hour session are greater than the 50 minutes of work we've got in the middle of this session. So I'm going to be speaking quickly. I'm going to try and make it as interactive as possible. But as you probably noticed already, it will be all fast with an accent. So please bear with me. We're going to touch on quite a few things that will be sort of hopefully seeds for later, rather than things that we might cover with satisfaction for you now. So this is how we're going to do today. Intros and framework, just 15 minutes now. Core ideas and some thinking / doing time. Even try and put you into some smaller groups for a very quick chat. And then conclusions and hopefully room for questions at the end as well. And I'll try and myself and Amy at Yale Center for Business and Environment, that's her logo showing there. We're going to try and keep an eye on the chat function throughout. So let's dive in. In terms of me, what makes me me, I suppose. I'm trying to say I'm a relatable leader. I've had a non-linear career, so that is part of your past and present too. I'm very curious. The book Range, David Epstein, I feel was written for people like me. Resilient, I don't quit on things that I know are worth it. I do everything, sort of keep going, and even in life, sort of do things like ultra marathons when I've got time. And then positive. Hopefully got that sort of feeling from the start already, but hope and zest here pop out for me in VIA.org. It's one of those tests that I think is one of the most academically rigorous to get your personality strengths. And so feel free to take it. But that, as I said, that's my top results. In terms of my experience, I've done my sort of non-linear path through life. Private sector, McKinsey, Virgin Group, 10 jobs in 12 years there. Carbon War Room, I helped Richard Branson set up an organization looking at economic solutions to climate change. The B team was focused on, my role was focused on climate and the Paris Agreement. I chaired a government task force in the UK called Energy Efficiency Deployment Office. Got a fourfold plug into Yale. Primary one here is just the resident fellow at the Center of Business and Environment, and a lecturer here at School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, which is changing its name tomorrow to the Yale School of the Environment. I jokingly put in a fifth sector there about this ultramarathon across the Sahara, but I think I've just learned, I do that because I think I've learned about as much from leadership, setting a vision, setting a purpose, and all the things we're going to be talking about today from that as I have from many of the other sectors. And then outside Yale, I consult on these 4 Ps that we'll be covering today and help leaders and teams maximize their potential. And in terms of that purpose and why I'm so excited to be part of this today for you guys is sort of my vision is that everyone can see their path to their great work. And great work being a sort of a quote and a title of a book from Thomas Berry. Mission, help leaders build purpose-driven paths to maximize positive impact. And so this is bang on today. So I wanted to switch now. That's me, and that's what we're going to be doing in the time. I want to switch to you now. I'm going to switch indeed to a poll. So if you could get your cell phones out, or indeed another window open, and have a think about this question: how has the last few months altered your world? And I'm just going to see if we can switch across. I've got the little Apple carousel here, but I think this should be working. If I go to full screen. So if you can follow the instructions at the top there and either go to pollev.com/Boyd, but some of the fastest I've seen on this in terms of being able to talk to the screen as a community here is if you can text Boyd to a number 223333. And then you'll get a text back saying, we know you're there. And then if you could start putting in a letter and you can sort of talk to the screen and we can see who's in the room today and how you're feeling. So how's the last few months altered your world? One is it's completely insert a choice verb, I'm currently feeling a bit of a loss. 2, definitely unsettled life as I knew it previously. I'm currently feeling a bit in flux. Interesting. Causing me to pause and think differently, but not necessarily a bad way. And then 4 is that I feel this could actually be an accelerator for improvement. This is a turning point, I'm excited. I see quite a few people have already got the hang of this, and a few more people have joined. Welcome, thank you. Great, and as you can tell, totally anonymous. So if you are not feeling so great, feel free to be honest to yourself and to us. Nobody can see who the numbers came from, but great to see that it's all top half so far. And I suppose it's a self-selecting group that chose to come here and say like this is causing me to think differently and maybe having some help for that. Maybe I'll just wait for a couple more responses now that you guys are getting the hang of the mechanism at the top. Texting Boyd to 22333. Great. And just for this and for everything else that you see today, I will be making a URL available at the end, so you don't need to take copious notes of what you see or screen grabs. I'll put a URL out and you can browse all the material that you see today at your leisure. Great. Thank you, everybody, for finding the tech tool and seeing what's going on here. Great, almost everybody. Thank you. Okay, next question. So what would make this session together most useful and interesting to you? And I'm first anchoring you in the sort of the 4 Ps of what we're going to do today. Purpose, confirming and defining your purpose. Priorities, clarifying what's important and what to work on. Potential, turning what's important into real potential, visualizing sort of what you need to be getting done. And then performance, pulling all that together and tactics to improve time management. I think you can answer a couple of times if you're split between a couple of them. So you can almost keep chatting to the screen in a sense. This is way faster to get up. People have now got their dialogue with the screen. It's excellent. So yeah, as I say, feel free to put a couple in if there's a couple that want to get across today. Okay, emphasis towards the end in terms of productivity, potential to performance, but one of the more balanced groups I've seen so far. So thank you for that. And responses more than a number of people here, so people have at least one chance to do that. So thank you. Okay, now this is free form. Feel free to text a word in there, and this is like a guide for me because you came here for a reason. I am super grateful for your time, like an hour and a half out of lunch. Hopefully you've got it to your side. But you know, sort of this is your precious time. So what would make this session together most useful and interesting to you in a word or two? And if you like a word that you see appearing, feel free to agree with it and text it, and it should appear and get bigger. But at the moment, I can't see. I see some results coming in, but they're not quite sort of appearing on the screen. So there we go. So figure is the first. Inspiration. As you can notice, if figure was to do something out with something else, you do underscore to keep it together with the word that you wanted it to be with. People haven't worked out yet, but emojis are welcome and allowed. So feel free to pick an emoji out that best describes sort of what you want out of this. But framework is good. Inspiration, we'll try. Action, tools, direction seems to be the clear winner so far. A plan. Good set of words coming. Direction and tools is coming up and being upvoted by quite a few of you here. Purpose, perspectives. Great, thank you. Over at least one word per person now, and sort of winner in terms of directions and tools and clarity, and a good snapshot of where we are today. So thank you for that. Great, and then last one is just more of a logistics one for me, just to get a feeling of who's in the room and how you like to do things. This is obviously not a course at Yale. This is not even a sort of board report or something else. If you're outside Yale and you've got somebody to report to, this is your format. When you want to get planning, sharing stuff, after that first sketch that might well be on pen and paper, what do you gravitate to next? How would you like to see this stuff that we're going to be talking about as a life on one page manifest itself? Number F is a moleskin, just staying on paper. I'm resolutely going to keep this on paper. E is like a project management tool, like Asana or something different. D is like mind mapping tools, like Simple Mind Light or something similar. And then you probably recognize the top 3 icons of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So see, sort of PowerPoint, Excel dominant people. Some people like to keep things in Word. Some people that like the mind maps, now that I explained what that icon was, and quite a few paper as well. They can keep this on paper. So hopefully the workbook, especially those people that answered F, if you hopefully printed out the stuff we made available last night, that will certainly help you. And then an even split on Excel and PowerPoint. Slight winning, edging ahead there, great. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you very much for the tool, that just for sort of interacting with us there and just getting a feel for who's in the room. Just patience if you can while I'm just flicking across. Now we're going to exit out of the poll. There's no better way to do it, unfortunately, so I'm just going to go back to, there we go. Excellent. So with that in mind, and a good sense and picture of what you'd like out of this, and thank it all seems everyone's here for the right reasons. I'm just going to give you a little bit more on the intro side in terms of the fundamental framework on what we are going to base all this stuff on. And it's as simple as I say, cross-sector, cross-life logic flow. It's something I've been passionate about for the last sort of decade and more, just sort of working out what makes great leaders great at what they do, and also have meaning and feel meaning of what they do. And it's a super simple logic flow. It's just hard to do. This idea of knowing why you're here, and to the extent you're leading a team, know why those around you are really here. Know what's important, and be very clear of the destination of what's important. And then drive your actions from those first two things. And whenever you can, get it on one page so you can see it, you can remember it, you can internalize it, and you can also positively infect others with that knowledge. So how that breaks down is, you've already answered the poll on it. The idea is that this is this connected leadership framework of these 4 Ps. But think of them not as something that that you always have to do in sequence, even though I'm going to take you in sequence today, but think of them more as interconnected fibers of a rope. And your leadership strength is as strong as the weakest fiber of this rope. So in terms of purpose, we're going to question and confirm sort of that purpose. Priorities being clarified and personalized to you. Potential, make them vivid, make the defining success very vivid and visualize. What does it feel like and what does it look like to be there? And then performance, connect it all together and illuminate it on a page and get it out there into the world and make it happen. Hold yourself accountable. So that's the idea of the rope. Hopefully that's one of a few physical analogies today that you can kind of walk away with and go, I remember that. I've got to kind of be conscious and intentional across all 4 of these things. So now we're into the sort of done intros and framework, the basic framework. This now dive into each one and then give you some thinking and doing time to the extent that's a good thing to do with your lunch. So let's go first into purpose. This is the first page of your workbook that we circulated last night. If you haven't sort of downloaded it, feel free to click to sort of copy the bit link at the bottom of this. If you want portrait, and if you want landscape, and you as I've done it here, feel free to do it to follow the other bit link on landscape. I'm just doing it on landscape because of the screen, but also have a think of your brain. Do you like to think of things vertically? Do you like to think of things across? People's brains sort of work in different ways, much like the word Excel piece as well. And the other piece might be just a sort of factor of your desk and your physicality. I created the portrait style workbook just over the course of COVID because so many people were talking to me about having a small desk, and the portrait style sort of fitted next to their keyboard when the lengthy bit did not. But anyway, let's go to this first page and grab a pen and a piece of paper, or if you want to set up the package on another screen, feel free to do so. So 3 sections here. First one is your fork, the fork in the road. Everyone on this call, including me, we're all at this fork on the road with choices up ahead. And we're at this fork, and it was our choice to be here. Why did you decide to be at this fork? Now, obviously, there's some exogenous factors that weren't your choice, but I'm saying that like your reactions created this fork here. And what are those choices that you made? Why did you decide to be here? Join or start what you're doing right now. It might be joining Yale if you're a student, but it also might be joining the firm you're in, or starting up if you're an entrepreneur, or anything else. And then more generally, sort of why did you decide to be at this fork in the road? Next piece, why do you think you're a good person to be at the fork? So basically, what's in your knapsack that you've brought to this fork in the road? Like why did you get in, with it to Yale or to the startup or to the firm? And why are you a good person to have around? What might people say? Second section, your horizons. Idea here is this, like going artificially long and then artificially short. Artificially long, why are you excited about where you, or to the extent you're a founder of something, or this, like where you could be in 10 years time, not where could you be in 10 years time, that sort of asking to sort of be that specific of what that looks like. It's more like, why are you excited about being that person, that 10-year you? And then the short horizon, artificially short, if you knew you only had a few months left here on this thing or on this earth, you can be as dramatic as you like, what would you ensure gets done and why? And then the third section is the idea of like your inner engine, the bit you just can't help being you. When are you in flow? What activities cause you to forget to eat and drink? And if you can, describe, sort of do tiny little notes why. Normally, there's some good answers in at work, A, at play, B, and back in your younger days in C. So feel free, if something comes to mind on A, B, and C, to write them all down in there. And then 6, obviously, save the big question at the end, like why are you here? What's the big why? Do you feel like you have a calling? And I love that quote from Mary Oliver. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? So why are you here? So these are sort of questions to ask yourself. Have a crack at them right now. They're on one page on purpose so that you don't write big essays here. You're writing keywords. So have a go. And I'm just going to put here just a few minutes on your own. And then we're going to think about circling, which was the one that sort of got you thinking most. But the first piece, I'm just going to leave you for a couple of minutes in quiet to scribble what you can. I'm going to give you one more minute now, but obviously you've got plenty of time after this session. But feel free also, if there's something troubling you about any other questions or things like that, to use the chat either in private or to everyone if you think it's a question that other people might have. Okay, for those that feel rushed, apologies. It's big questions that you hopefully have time to come back to again and again. Put a new date up, copy the sheet, have a think about it. For those that feel like they've scribbled something down, maybe circle the question that got you thinking most, as I said at the start there. Caused you to maybe write something down that's interesting to you, or maybe even caused you to think about something that you hadn't thought about for a while or at all. And then do you want to put that number in chat? You don't need to share, but just maybe put that number of the question that got you thinking most. Couple of 4s. That artificially short horizon. 3, 5. Okay, so this is both the horizon piece got people going, it looks like, and then also that feeling of flow. 3, 4, and 5 look dominant until there's a 2 in there from Jane. Thank you, Jane. Like sort of what's in your knapsack? 5s, 3s. Julie 2. Great. If anyone would like to share, do you want to use your little thumbs up sign, or go into the chat, and then you feel free to come off mute? Want to talk about anything particularly interesting? No problem if not. If your mouths are full and you want to get on and get the tools. Cool. I'll keep moving. But thank you very much for that. That's great. And the chat feels like I'm this size of people with like over 30 in the session to kind of keep going on chat. In terms of further options for you here, Clayton Christensen recently passed away. Fantastic Harvard Business School professor. Has done a number of different things, including written on disruption, he's famous for, but How Will You Measure Your Life is one of my favorites. An HBR article, but also a TED Talk and a book. Simon Sinek, I think that's over 50 million views now, about how to lead from your why. Really recommend that. Amy Rosneski, our own professor at the School of Management, written some great stuff on jobs, careers, and calling. And those are, they're unconnected to your seniority in your firm. It's more how you imbue meaning in what you're doing. And there's many more besides. So in terms of doing stuff here, finish this with a bit of time on your own. Chat with somebody in the session if you recognize anyone here. You just think, oh, I know that person, I'll chat with them offline. Ikigai, if you Google that word, you get this great little diagram here, which is another way to kind of get in at this purpose piece. The Excel template I'll give you at the end. I think there's quite a few sort of Excel people and Google Sheets people will have these questions in there. But the idea, the concept is a Japanese one of trying to find the sweet spot for where what you love meets what you're good at, meets what the world needs, meets what you can be paid for. And if you don't have one of those, then you're disconnected and in one of the petals rather than in the center. And personality test, I mentioned already when I was introducing myself with Hope and Zest, is that VIA.org is a really good one for surfacing your personality, your sort of inbuilt, it's called values in action, inbuilt personality traits, and what can you sort of almost like not help bring into the world. Great. And now before I sort of leave the first P, because even though it wasn't a top answer to like where you wanted to spend most of our time together, it actually underpins every single one of the other P's. So I wanted to explain why we sort of ask these 6 questions and why I sort of put these questions to probably hundreds, going on probably thousands of students and executives over the years. In terms of number 1, why did you decide to be here? Have a look at this one at the individual basis from point of view of anchoring. Is this like that idea of like, if you're having a bad time at work, or you're having a bad time at Yale, or you're having a bad time wherever you are, it's just like, I came here for this reason. What did I write down here? And then if I'm looking at people in a team comparing notes and they're hopefully going to work together, I'm looking for similarity and complementarity amongst the top team of their answers to one. In terms of 2, look at this one for your sort of your boost, your pitch. For those of us on the call that are not sort of born New Yorkers, you know, that you are probably and potentially culturally sort of educated, like I might have been, to say, like, you know, do not boast, do not sort of puff your chest out and say how good you are. This is the little box of the page where you do that and you write that down. Channel your inner New Yorker here. And I sort of write that stuff down. So in low moments, you go, I've got these things in my knapsack. These are the things that I'm good at. And in a team, I'm looking for answers here when we're comparing them of synergy, but also of differences. As everyone's putting down the same strength there, we tend to get a little worried because you don't have the variety that a top team should have. Your horizons, individual, keeping your eye on the prize. You know, sort of that idea of like lifting your chin up, and quite a few people on the chat said, you know, like 3 got them thinking. Is your current building towards this? You know, this piece of those feelings of excitement that you want to have with a 10-year you. Individuals and teams, especially in startups, I'm thinking there's often sort of useful words for personal vision and mission statements, as well as team vision and mission statements. And then number 4, again, a very popular one on the chat function there, like the people circled. This is really useful for priorities. It's almost like a backdoor question, sort of under your rib cage, to sort of like obviously I'm taking off the lid of urgency now that you've only got a few months left. But if you take off that a bit of urgency, the thing you put down on 4 is probably some of the most important things in your life. And you put them down there saying like, if I only had a few months, I'd have to get those things done. Inner engine, I think about them in the A, B, C. I think every single one of these is useful in different ways. A, from job crafting, a la Amy Rosnesky's work, like if you don't have pieces of what you wrote down in 5A in your job, how can you get them into your job? Or how can you apply for a job that has that in it? We're potentially doing a follow-on workshop for this one called The Hunt, where we're sort of focusing in on that job search, on what's next. Have a think about that sort of 5A in terms of can I craft my job and my career to have things that I wrote down there in it. 5B is recharge. Like hopefully you've got those things in your weekly calendar. If you don't, you're likely to run out of batteries for 5A. And then 5C, sometimes those childhood youth memories that you put down in there are really useful frames for going to the next challenge. So whether it was jumping off a cliff into an ocean if you live by the coast, or as I was talking to somebody who lived in the high veld in South Africa, that would be terrible, that'd be very frightening, but going out into the veld with his bike, that was the way to do it. So those sort of anchoring of like what you did, building Lego, reading, whatever it was, it doesn't have to be active necessarily, but that frame of like, this is my next challenge. It's just another Lego puzzle. It's just another jump off a cliff. You know, like, I love this. It's a very strong route for you to sort of build the next strength that you're going to need. And then team, I'm looking in there how people can be sensitive to the differences amongst each one. And I mean, that's really interesting. You know, the real appreciation of how people tick and how different they all are. Finally, not a very popular one on the chat function there, but just a good one to have and just write down. Like, why do I think I'm here? And potentially is all for all us sort of founders out there, or sort of or consultants, you know, sort of, or you know, sort of smaller firms. So like, can your mission and your calling actually align over time? So I put up my mission. You know, sort of actually that's probably what I put in for number 6. And then team. What's really interesting there is that you get a real appreciation of those around you that sort of and help you can foster orientations to callings of each other rather than just jobs. Okay, well done everyone for getting through the first P. That's a clear sort of one for us that we sort of need to build everything else from and be constantly intentional with. Priorities, let's move on to the next P, clarified and personalized. So you might find that this is how your inbox feels. It's even worse than this because it might be quite exciting to get a real letter these days, but this might be your inbox. You might find that your calendar feels like a bad game of Tetris, and there's too much stuff going on, especially in these days of Zoom where things can just sort of seamlessly go from one conference call to another. And then sometimes you might just feel misaligned with the world or yourself, and it obviously be a shame to be the team on the right. And the key piece here, I think, for all of us to realize is that these are underpinned by mega trends that are making things worse, not better over time. So your supply of quality attention is fundamentally fixed in terms of the amount of brain power we have to not multitask, but to fast switch, and to have hours in the day where we are awake and hours a day when we need to sleep. But the demand on quality attention on the other side is completely shifted and is shifting even getting worse. So more people in the world. It took till 1960 to get to the first 3 billion people on the planet. And just in the last few decades, we've gone to 7 on the way to 9, 10 plus. And we're more connected, there's more devices than ever there was. There's more data produced every year than the cumulative stock of data ever. If you think of everything that's been ever written down, Libraries of Congress, you know, Shakespeare and more, there's more added to that stock every year than has ever happened before. And then socially, there's this piece of no way to hide. Even here we are on summer and holiday, and some of you might even be on holiday, unfortunately, but that idea of like you're expected to always be online. So there's this sort of social piece. Also, for all of you on the call that are sort of rising through their careers, this is only going to get worse as well the more you go up, because the more you go up, people under you or have not done as much as you look at you, you become more visible, and they want a little bit of your time. So this is getting worse, not better. So now this is the low point intentionally of the day with you and time with you, and say like, well, you have to grab this and you have to take control, because otherwise the world will control your time for you. There's a analogy that I use all the time, another physical analogy. So we have the rope for the 4 Ps. This is the sort of piece for the priorities. Leveraging Stephen Covey made this popular way back in the 1950s, and it wasn't even his idea. It's an older story than that. Just this idea of rocks, pebbles, and sand fitting into your jar. And if you put the rocks in the jar first, as you can see on the left, then when you put the pebbles in, then the pebbles fit around the edges of the rocks. And then when you put the sand in, the sand fits around the edges of the rocks and the pebbles. And so on the jar, on the left-hand side, you fitted everything in your jar. But on the jar on the right-hand side, sand first, then pebbles, then only one rock fitted in. So clearly there's quite a bit, there's just hopefully a visual here that you can't unsee that says, like, I want to live the life of the jar on the left-hand side. I want to know my big things, my most important things in my life that I need to devote attention to and get them in the jar. And then I have time for the middle stuff. And then I have time for the small stuff. And if there's one thing for this hour and a half with you together, is to sort of get that thinking into how you carry yourself, how you manage your time, how you're planning. Is like, what are those big rocks, and can I get them in the jar first? So 4 thoughts on your rocks, and you can probably see this. And this is now the diagram that you saw on page 2 of your workbook. We're going to go into that next. 4 thoughts on your rocks as we think about them right now. And I think for the purposes of this session, let's do life. You might think of your life, but if you want to, you can narrow it and say the title of this page is my work. But let's think of it as your life for now. 4 thoughts on your rocks. The first one is they're crucial to your why. That's why we spent so long on that relatively. Like, it's really important to know the purpose. Second, future-proof your inventory. The idea is, like, think of these as an inventory of your time and being proud of how you spent your time rather than a target in itself. And think of these things that rock that you named today is probably the rock that you're going to have in 3 or 4 years' time. It's not like raise 100,000 for my startup. It's something more enduring, like solid funding or a successful startup. It's something that you are likely to have and want and work and be proud to work on in the next few years. Words really matter, so name these rocks with care. What I suggest, and I put it in small type on the workbook, but is say, like, think of big nouns that are that rock, and then think of some personalized adjectives that make that rock yours and imbue something in it that says, like, I want to work on that and I want to spend time on that. And then 4 is the sweet spot. I have 4 thoughts on rocks on purpose. There's actually quite a lot of science on this. There's a sort of a science article I can put in the appendix that the 3 to 5 lists of 3 to 5 are really good for the brain. So think altitude. Like, you could have 50 to-dos today, and you could have one meaningful life, but get to the altitude where you can see those 3 to 5 most important things, that altitude of looking at this stuff. And legs of a table, like, 4 is the sweet spot of a table. And 3 and 5 is okay, but either side of that is not a very useful tip. So with that in mind, have a look at the sheet. Again, either portrait or landscape. Put, again, the date on it. This is how you're looking at things right now. And then start thinking of bold, powerful nouns and then some adjectives that make it here. So here's one just to sort of run through it in case you're sort of feeling a little sort of stuck or this is the first time you've done it. Say many of us on this call might have something like family or something similar to that. Say mine's family, but my family is crazy and wee. It's crazy and wee because, like, my wife, my kids, my cat, they're all under 5'1". I've got 3 kids under 8. The cat's crazy too. That describes my family. It probably doesn't describe yours, especially since not from Scotland. Wee is the Scottish word for small. So this imbues something for me that says I'm going to work on that and sort of hopefully be good at that and be present for that. But you might have a completely different way of describing it, and that's great because that's what you want to get in the jar. So with that in mind, personalized adjectives and verbs and nouns. Have a go on in your own, and I've just brought back the 4 thoughts on rocks there that you can sort of have at your disposal as you've got that sheet in front of you. So again, I'm going to give you another sort of 3 or 4 minutes just to kind of quick brain dump. Now, how to use the sheet, put the big 4 rock level, and I think you've got space for 5 if you need it, the sort of 4 rock level, write it in the rock, and if you have to explain what's in it, and if you were to split the rock open, what would you see? My wife, my kids, my cat, for instance, that would be on the right-hand side, and you could unpack what's in that thing. Have a go of it. And again, any questions into chat privately or with Amy at Yale Center Business Environment, or to everyone if you think it's helpful for me to clarify something for more than one person. Okay, don't mind if you, don't worry if you haven't finished yet. Hopefully you went down the middle first, but sometimes it is easier to unpack and explain. It's all just notes and it's just you, no test or marks. What I want to do now is if we can, we're going to split you out into rooms. You're likely to have 3 or 4 people in them. It's all going to happen automatically if you haven't been in one of these before. Feel free, please, to unmute. You're only going to see 2 or 3 other people on there. It's randomly assigned. The computer just does it. Have a think. I'm going to give you sort of 5 to 10 minutes here in breakout rooms. Compare and contrast what you've written about your works. And feel free to plagiarize and trade. This is unlike sort of work in academic integrity in Yale. Feel free if they've got a good word or think, yes, that's a good one, I should have that. Feel free to do that. It's your life. You've got to just get to the best answer you can if you want to of the most important things that you want to focus on and your priorities in life. And feel free to bring up your first sheet if you want, in terms of if those interesting things in 3, 4, and 5 that you ended up writing about, did they help you get there? So with that in mind, Amy is going to just get you all off, and we'll see you back here in the main room automatically. You just have to say okay both times. And we will see you back here in sort of 5 to 10 minutes. Cut off. I do apologize. That happens with the system. Thanks very much for your patience. I know we in my room, we're in completely mid-flow. So I'm just going to reshare my screen. Okay, quick thoughts here, just again on chat, or again, feel free to sort of try and put your hand up, and we can try and come to you. Amy, if you can have a look and see if there's anybody that particularly is up for sharing. Is there anyone that is willing to share a couple of rocks of theirs that they came up with? Again, don't worry if it's lunchtime. Albert, I'm actually going to pick on you. A, because you were in my room, and B, you offered earlier to share. So Albert, if you could come off mute and maybe just say like the things you were thinking of, because I think there were also a really good one to show what was going on in your mind, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Albert. I was in the group with everyone else talking earlier. So for my three, I spoke specifically health, career, open source, and sustainability projects. I'm a software developer, so I'm really interested in open source projects, specifically sustainability. And then I didn't pick my fourth rock yet.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Albert. Thanks so much.
Yep.
And I know we're going whistle-stop tour for everyone here, but thank you, Albert. That's great. The bit that we said in our room with Albert and Catherine and Spitta was just that one thing here is like all that's important should be in there. So when you look down that middle column of rocks, you think, I think everything that's really important to my life is is captured in some way. The other thing we talked about, again with Albert in particular, there was like on health, like, oh, what kind of health? Can you describe it in a way, bubbly, holistic, some other word that says that's the sort of kind of health that I want, that kind of career. And then the open source one came to life really well on its own, for instance. And then also the other thing to think about is like, what order do you want to see them in? They're not necessarily preference order, but just a way of like, I like to see them this way. I like to see them underpinned by this one at the bottom, or I want to see it led by this one. It's all obviously completely up to you. Great. So thank you all for sort of getting into that, and also for getting into the piece on Zoom's technology and getting thrust into rooms and back in. We see sort of kept just about everybody there, so that's great. Let's go on to the third P, potential, vivid and visualized, and let's sort of give you some things to think about as we go into the future here beyond this seminar. So really what we're talking about here is this piece encapsulated there. Know what's important, be very clear of the destination. So this is the third page in your workbook, and the third, you might not notice the little rope diagram in the top right hand there to navigate you through this process. But the idea is that put the rocks that you've thought about at that top level, not the detail level, on the left-hand side, write them out again. You might think of some good new words to describe them. And then the next piece that's really important is to have a look at a date in time that might mean something to all those rocks, but typically they are 12 months plus out. So the idea here is you tend to overestimate what you can get done in a day and underestimate what you can get done in a year. And that's why you've got that super long to-do list and you're disappointed in the evening and say, oh, why didn't I get all these 25 things done? It's just like, that's the human nature. But if you can be very intentional about planning further out, you can be amazed at how you can get the really important things done and blown through sometimes ahead of time. So pick a date that is meaningful to you. A default date for us sitting here mid-year might be December 31st, 2021. So like a year and a bit. Or it could be like by next summer, so sort of July 1st, 2021, like I want this to be true. So put that date out and have a think about what that date means to you. Could be a birthday as well. That's like a year out. And then the other date is obviously today's date. What are you thinking as of today? Rock on the left-hand side, and then sort of you repeat it there. And then here's the piece that I'm going to just give you like 1 or 2 minutes to pick one now. So have a think of a rock that you're most happy with. Like, I really like that one. Like, I like the way I said it. I like the ingredients. I'm confident on that one. Think about that. And then think of some sentences or bullet points. It doesn't have to be fully grammatically correct sentences, but sentences that are in the past tense. So toastable sentences you want to be true. This is grounded in sort of everything from sort of sports science and sort of basic psychology, saying visualize the finish. What does it feel like to be going through that finish line? And what does it feel like to be successful? And write it in that tense.
Yeah.
The other piece is think both concrete and quantitative, e.g. numbers. Some of you might be sort of, and do it in your work life with like OKRs and other things like that, objectives and key results. So think of like those numbers that you have to sort of run your life to in work, but also apply some of those numbers to things that are fun. How many books could you get through in a year? How many dates could you have with your significant other? Whatever it is, like put numbers on things, especially things that aren't used to getting numbers, because that could help. But also flip that round and imbue some emotion and qualitative comments and champagne moments in things that are not used to getting that either. So you could have a champagne moment at work, for instance, which is like, we were celebrated by X, or we got on the front page of Y. Like not just numbers and widgets that you have sort of made or sold. So have a think about that idea. And again, that bringing these things to life as a picture that you feel and as a thing that's done. Last piece, I wanted to bring my sort of word toastable out there and just make sure that you saw that, to say like, it should be almost like kind to yourself, as in it's doable, but also stretchy enough that if you get this sentence true, then you and your sort of the most favorite person in the world are sitting there with a glass in your hand saying cheers and a big smiles on your face because this sentence is true. So maybe just pick just pick a rock, as I said, that you're sort of happy with. You look at it and think, I like that one. And just take a minute now to try and write down a sentence or two in the past tense that you want to be true by that date that you've just scribbled at the top. Go for it. Okay, conscious of time. Keeping an eye, is anyone brave enough or already sort of worked so fast that they've already got a sentence for the group that they would like to share? By its nature, these are hard to craft, and by their nature, they're also personal. So I'd completely understand if you don't have one. But feel free to just drop anything into chat saying, yes, I've got one, or here's my sentence. If you do, I've got that chat window open. Feel free also to treat this like the Jungle Book, where every elephant takes a step back, leaving one poor person like Albert alive, which I pick on, but I'm not going to do that this time. Thank you, Albert, for the last one. Fantastic. Catherine Broad, thank you so much. You've got a sentence. Give it a try. Thank you. Come off mute. Thank you, Catherine.
Well, trying to get off mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
oh, great. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, this is family, personal life, and an other, a significant other, and those sentences we combined and loved sharing, bringing joy to each of our families.
Great. That's
moving
lovely.
towards later years. Thanks.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. And you can feel the moment there. That's great. And the other thing is that you can feel what the planning is required in order for that to be true as well. So thank you, Catherine. That's great. Anyone else? No. Okay, thanks for the bravery as well. Thank you for trying that out. Also, for those that didn't and said that it's still cooking, not to worry, but try these sentences out just like Catherine did. Try saying them, and how does it feel? Also, try them with one of the people that might be affected by that rock, and say, "Here's what I'm trying to aim for. What do you think?" So feel free to try these things out. They get stronger the more that you bring them out into different formats, including speaking. There's a sort of piece about sort of, do you learn by thinking, do you learn by listening, reading, talking? Some of it's like there's a lot of learning and talking and seeing how it sounds to you as you do it. Great stuff. Thank you so much for that. That's great, and I'm glad it worked at such a sort of a sort of class size scale. So thank you. So let's try and wrap all this stuff together and get performance. So connecting and illuminating this stuff so you can see it. And you'll see this already on the workbook that you were sent yesterday. This is like sort of the fourth one, and tagged on the rope as the fourth. There's also the landscape version, as I put in there, the T4G worksheets. And there's also a Google Sheet one. Again, we'll make that available to you if you haven't got it already. I think, Amy, maybe if we can copy and paste these or repeat them into the chat function, maybe by the end, that would be awesome. Thank you. But we'll also have the link to the site, the slides, so you can see them all anyway. But anyway, let's try and get the life on one page. And by the way, to the extent this is good for teams and top executives, all the way through to sort of working teams, you could take out the square brackets and say, this is our work on one page. This is our mission on one page. How can we get everything that's important together? So let's do it in the PowerPoint way. I think PowerPoint and Excel were the top two that came out at the poll at the start. Pull in your stuff from purpose at the top. And as you can see there, like an overall success statement, a sort of almost like a personal leadership statement, a kind of encapsulation of your purpose sheet maybe. And then, and if it's in a corporate setting, you might have your vision and mission in there as well. To the extent I am both of those, like as a consultant, and many of you might be the same, or you're founders of your own business too, that's potentially one and the same. Then down the left-hand side, put your rock in there. To the extent this is going out to a broader audience than just you might not need to call it a rock. It could be a priority area. But like, what are the 3 to 5 things that are the rocks that you've done? And then most important piece here is like, define success by that date that's 12 months plus out. Now the power of just to sort of sit here and pause and look at this is like, in just a few sentences, you've got by definition the most important things in your life encapsulated in places that have got emotional resonance as well as sort of cerebral resonance, and then you've really crafted the sentences that you want to be true a year out. This is almost like the most powerful sort of half page that will hopefully come out of this session, and then you print it out and you could have it anywhere. You could sort of have that to hand. Then I skip to the right hand side. Sorry if I'm getting this right on the camera here. To the right hand side and say, what's the progress as of today? Put today's date in there and write today and say, how am I feeling against this? You might put your rating. Remember, we started the whole session today with like, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling on this rock, on the progress? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Get off the middle and sort of think, you know, sort of what does it feel like at the moment? And then last is to put in the priorities for the next 30 days, the next 90 days, whatever your planning horizon is normally. Put that in the middle as the bridge between the defined success a year plus out and the progress as of today. Many of you on the call are sort of super achievers and sort of successful, I imagine, and you're probably intuitively great at this priority list, and you do it quite often. The key piece here I'm nudging you on is to do it last, not first. So that piece of sort of wanting to just jump to those priorities and get them down and then start doing them, it's like, do it after all the other steps here, and it's be such a much more powerful priority list for you. So that's life on one page. And as you can see, there's a version on landscape, there's a version in portrait, and there's also a version in Excel that you can do there. Just want to sort of kind of bring this to sort of some sort of close here in terms of like, how do all those things come together and where might you take them next? And then also leave you, as I said on the third tool, the third to do I said for myself was like, how can you sort of anchor these in some tools to win the day? And to sort of be more productive and pull it through to time management principles too. So first thought is just like, to the extent you're working and not alone, but you're doing sort of work on one page, this works well with teams. Think of a sort of almost like a nested structure underneath a CEO or a founder. And the idea is like avoiding the common areas of red, where you co-craft the CEO's top priorities and the founder's ones, but it plummets through the organization because nobody's got that thing that's important. And then the other thing that's just as destructive is the other red oval, which is like two people are doing something that is actually the same thing. And that's sort of political dysfunction and just a bad use of resources. Done well, what you can do here, and sharing each other's rocks and where they need to be and what language am I using carefully to say this is what success looks like, and we're all laddering up to the top. And you can get this almost like this visual of this feeling of these idea of triangles where the points are meeting neatly. And they are sort of laddering up into a sort of a coherent set of responsibilities. And the idea is that this can work as a communication in multiple directions. Obviously down, in terms of down to people saying like, here are my priorities, but getting the more junior people to sort of write their priorities in their language and getting them up and saying if you have too much to do and not enough money, then you can communicate that and say, I've got these things to do. If you want me to do more than this, then I have to change things, or I need more money, more people in order to make it happen. So up, down, and then across is worth looking across at others. We do this quite a lot in senior teams, and almost like have the chief marketing officer look at the chief technical officer as one and say, look, like that's their language about what they're trying to do. So I will phrase my ask in that language, not in my own. And I'm far more likely to get things done when I've got a very sound appreciation of what that person wants to do in one page too. So really powerful for teams as well as individuals. Another piece here that might help you just updating yourself, but also updating others, is just that fifth one I put in there in both workbooks to say like, well, what's the rock? And then what's the progress as of today? Like progress up to the, sort of since the last time we met / the last time I reviewed this, priorities to the next time I'm going to review this, or till the next time we meet. Again, you could switch that out for board meetings. Progress since the last board meeting, priorities to the next board meeting, across the key priorities that we've agreed are the key swim lanes in terms of like how are we measuring and how are we keeping track of what drives the value. And again, it's irrespective of sector, whether it's for-profit, non-profit, it's just keeping track on what's important and where it needs to be. Okay, so that's the sort of the 4 Ps and how to get it all, as I said, it's sort of try to set up at the start, is like how to get, by almost like a definition, all that's important to you on one page. From our last section, I just wanted to sort of do a little bit on time management. How do you pull this together? And how do you almost like create that sort of purpose-driven day? I just wanted to say here is this, like, it's like beneath this strategy, if you will, if this is a strategy or an approach, there's the piece about sort of doing whatever you do during the day. And so, as I say there, hunt for and keep to a system that works for you and keep changing things and tweaking things until it's like this system is connecting me to that purpose and I'm getting more things done. I just want a quick show of hands or sort of thumbs up or I think there's a thumbs up or a hand clap or whatever you want the reaction to be. If you admit to a pen and paper, but you admit to writing a task you've already done just so that you have the satisfaction of scoring it out. People can just indicate that they have done that and admit it. Don't mind that there's not too many reactions here, because in a classroom setting or in an executive team session, there's nearly always 90 to 100% people admit that is something they have done, is write pre-completed task down just so they can score it out. What I stuck there is like, do that if that helps you. Because that is, it's a psychological hack. It makes you feel good, but also you've done something. So write it down. Don't worry about that. In other words, use that daily system to your advantage, but start with the pieces that we've been talking about for the bulk of the session. And then the strategy is going to be, this approach on the day-to-day basis is going to be so much more powerful. Imagine this notebook here, for instance, with the annual goals that you've just done, sort of almost like taped or sort of printed out and stuck to the inside front cover. Having said that, going online, Trello, Asana, MeisterTask, and many more. There's some great stuff there if you want to sort of take all this stuff online. These tend to be really good if you have the rocks and the defined success in your mind. They tend to be quite awe-inspiring and hard to think about if you don't have those things sort of predefined. They're like empty canvases. They're as useful as your strategy going in. Swipes is another one. You can to-do list like left, right, almost like a dating app, except it's your to-dos. Reminders is actually quite a good one for the Apple system across, sort of keeping track of things that are important across devices. So then let's think about a sort of time maximization in this in these special times. And I really like this sort of humor here from Liz Fosslien here about this sort of like, it just feels like it's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And it just feels like Zoom, sort of team Zoom. So know that and have an element of being kindness to of kindness to yourself. I love this piece from the Canadian Parks that got tweeted out and went viral by a very loyal and sort of appreciative employee saying, "Isn't it amazing when your employer says this?" And they're the Canadian government. And so having a moment to that, to say to the extent you're working for others that don't share this, it's unfortunate, but you can potentially share this and try and change some opinions. But if you are in a position of power or you're working on your own, have a think about some of these things. And as it says there, be kind to yourself and not judge how you're coping based on how you see other coping, and vice versa. Be kind to others and not judge how they are coping based on how you are coping. And energy, when we're going on to this sort of time maximization and how to harness these 4 Ps, have a think and just be good at knowing how you're feeling. I almost gave you no tools at the start intentionally and said, how are you feeling 1 to 4? And what's a word? But have a think, if you can, sometimes on these different types of energy. There's a good article here, Lauren Schwartz, and again, it's a bit more detail in the appendix about sort of what's my quantity of energy today? What's the physical quantity of energy? Like, did I get enough sleep, for instance? The other one above that sits on that is this quality of energy. What's my emotional sort of well-being? And then above that, my ability to focus, my mental energy. And then above that, that spiritual energy, that life force, that thing that you're supposed to be in the world. And think of the interrelation between these. Sometimes when one's strong, it can help the others. Sometimes one level needs the others and suffers because of the others. And then the other piece is, can you plan your week accordingly to the extent you have discretion on it? So for the tasks that need a lot of one of these levels, put it into a place where you're likely to have the energy to do that. This is a tool. This is the last slide on my kind of the workbook template for you that was designed sort of during COVID to help people sort of bring the sort of life on one page, this sort of strategy of the year and the kind of that review to the sort of that daily to-do list and that idea of like how can I sort of win the day. So what I've done there, and I think I'll show you yesterday's, for instance, sort of something that I do each day. And also sort of help others do it. But the idea is put the date in the top left-hand corner. If you're going to use the same sheet, feel free to type it out so you don't have to repeat your rocks out down the left and repeat your vision and mission statements. But leave blank, for instance, today. What's today all about? Like what's it in a headline? And then if you've got your rocks down the left-hand side, by end of day today, I want to achieve these things. Are there some key ones that you really want to achieve? So for instance, down in the notes at the bottom, I say, can you maybe double square or surround or do in a different color the 3 to 5 or 2, even better if it's less than that, 2 to 4 things that you like will make the day a success if you get those things done. And then what I recommend again in the notes is like use maybe like a 4-color pen or different pens and sort of plan the day like that with your rocks and the things that will win the day. Switch color, and then those to-do lists that come up. Those little things, know where they go, know that they're different, and then either write them in and yes, that does indeed have to be done today, or that's why that column's so broad. Put it in as a reminder for you for tomorrow to remember, and say yes, that is a to do, but it's not today's to do, and write that down in sort of the middle right of the screen there. And then the final one, the right hand column, is that idea of performance and accountability for yourself in the day. Like you could put a little time inventory, like how did you spend your day? Sort of 8, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. How did it go? You could put in sort of flashes of inspiration, good stuff, wins of the day, ideas that popped up and must be sort of attended to, etc. And then you might want, if you wanted to, record meetings on the other side or anything else, or do double-sided, whatever you like to do. So that's just a way of sort of winning the day in a time when it's sort of almost like the uncertainty and the exogenous factors are so uncertain. How can you create certainty and also create an anchor to your true purpose, because you're writing it every day? Some people leave that blank and just say, I want to handwrite that, and make sure that sort of I am writing my purpose, because then I'm more likely to do to-dos in line with it. So with that in mind, just like last piece, and it's almost by definition, I wanted to spend the least time on it, is the idea of pebbles and sand. By definition, they're not as important as the rocks. And so I've spent hopefully 90% of the time on rocks and thinking like, what are your big things? Can you name them? Can you spend time on them and work out what to do with them? But just gonna leave you the last couple of minutes with sort of pebbles and sand. The problem with pebbles is that they're likely to be somebody else's rock. As in, Peter, I just need a little bit of your time, or sort of, Michaela, I just need a little bit more of your time. Catherine, I just need this little piece. And so, and they might know, or I might know, it's just like, it's sort of really important for me if I get the time, but not as important for that person that I'm looking for the time. And that's the problem with pebbles, and you will have people like that. And so the key piece is like, how do you manage that when you know, sort of really this is sort of a fictional piece here about in a few weeks. Do not delay. If you were on the sort of the, and sorry, there's one slide that I always like here to say like you can't actually say this, unfortunately, even though it would be tempting to do so. So indeed, don't catch yourself either sending this phrase out or receiving it. This idea of in a few weeks, as it says there, it's a mythical place where one is able to deal with non-priority items. And so as a leader, if you're getting a sort of a piece of pebble time, decide, do I delegate this? Is it just not something I can do? And the power of saying no is huge and so well documented in lots of different places. But that idea of saying no, but, you know, sort of Paul is much better than me at that. So I'm going to put you in touch. Or if you really do think in a few weeks is a place, then give that person July 15th at 10 and give them a spot. And they will be grateful for that because they know they're trying to get into your calendar. So be specific, either yes or no, but hanging on in a few weeks does not help you. It creates a loop that is very unconstructive for both of you. If you're on the receiving end of in a few weeks, do the other side, push for it. Is that a no? Does that mean there's somebody else in your organization that's better for this? I don't mind, you know, sort of send me over, or keep nudging and saying, Peter, if it is just 10 minutes, you know, please tell me. And if it is just a few weeks, how about July 15th? So just don't take the words in a few weeks because they are not helpful for you on either side of that exchange. The other piece on Pebbles is to switch the app from a reactive use of your email inbox as a way of dealing with Pebbles, because almost most Pebbles are going to come in by email because it was more important for the sender to send it than it was for you to receive it. And so they're trying to get something done by you, so they sent you something. So try and switch from that and think of your calendar as the place to schedule both rocks, like give yourself rock time, even and especially if that rock time is recharge time, like, you know, spending time with family, as Catherine was talking about, spending time on your health, as Albert was talking about, spending time researching open source coding. They should have their blocks of time, and then the Pebbles can go in as well and equally scheduled. I do some stuff, you know, sort of in my local town here where I schedule an afternoon and block those sort of smaller sort of voluntary items just back to back, either in a cafe or now on Zoom. And I know that that's the place where those sort of Pebbles go. And I just put in there inbox zero, anyone. It's like, if you really want inbox zero, feel free. Like if there's something existential about it, go for it. But almost like from somebody who sort of teaches and coaches people on this, if it's giving you angst and you're never getting there, do not worry about it, because it's not connected to the things that are most important. By definition, they're not rocks. So release yourself from that need to be inbox zero if it's just something you heard about and it's not something that you really do need and are good at doing. For those that are inbox zero, feel free to keep going. But for those that don't, you do not need it. Switching the app to calendar is a more powerful way of controlling your time. And then last piece is sand. Two things here. Know your technology. Convert it from hijacking your attention, which it might be doing now. A little bit in the corner says CNN News Alert, Instagram, my friend just posted, and create it to enabling your attention. So for instance, if it helps you, CNN's rock is to get more money from your eyeballs on advertising. So they are intending to rob you of your time and put sand in your jar. Do not do it. Switch off those alerts. And instead, enable your attention. Wi-Fi off, dead battery sprint. Take your laptop to the garden with the task or the cafe. Pomodoro is a timer app. You have a deal with yourself, 25 minutes. There it is. I'm going to press go and only do project one. Do not go for a coffee. Do not pass go. I'm going to do this for 25 minutes, and then reward yourself afterwards. And then control your home screen. Like, it's amazing how your iPhone is configured naturally to work against you in your use of time rather than for you. But if you flick it around, rocks apps, things that help you with your rocks, one's home screen and near it, and then things that are pebbles and sand, make them very sort of far away and hard to get to, or take them off the phone altogether. And then the last piece on this is, so know your tech, know yourself. Like, I love this piece from Up. Like if you know what your squirrels are, do your squirrels at the start of the day, end of the day as rewards, but do not kind of pop up in the middle of a desk, like a moment and say, I must do this stuff. And just be honest with yourself. This idea, like, if it matters for work and you're working hard, you're moving the big rocks forward. If you're working hard and it doesn't matter, then that's just busy work. That's just doing things that aren't important. If it matters for work and you're not working hard, now that's terrible. You're disappointing yourself and others. But if you're sort of relaxing purely on things that don't matter to work, that could be good. So have a think about it. Like that could be recharging. That could be prioritizing other rocks. So last piece here, just to wrap up on conclusions, and I know we probably don't have time for questions, but I'm very happy to be emailed. But just like with the 2 or 3 minutes we've got left, I just wanted to kind of put this all in a wrapper for you, and yeah, to the extent I can certainly sort of hang on for a little bit as well. That this is all part of a journey. The idea is this, like, that you become intentional on these 4 things and kind of know, oh, I haven't revisited that for a while. That feels weak. I'll go back. I'll duplicate the slide, put a new data on the top, have a think about these things. But that idea is a consistent journey. And really, what I've been trying to do here is I've been trying to help you sort of build, sort of give you some ropes, give you some bridges, give you some paths. These are sort of tools that intentionally, hopefully, like they're path building tools. It's your forest, it's your trees, it's your landscape, it's your life that I have no idea about. And it's that richness you've got. So sort of almost like pull in the tools you need to get across whichever ravine and up whichever tree and build whatever path in order to make life as rewarding for you as you want it to be. And then last thoughts here was just like the world, once you've done this once, the world has got this thing, it's a bit like percolation. The world shakes your jar. And you might start intentionally on the jar on the left, but it will become the jar on the right because the world wants to put the smaller stuff in. So you have to stay intentional. You have to stay on top of it. And then aspirationally, you could take this up a level if you like. Like, think about how you did this just now. You dipped in on personal leadership and leading yourself. Think about how you lead a team and how a team can rally on a clear vision and mission, clear rocks, and a view of the future. And then think of a system that you can change. That underlying system, the purpose there, and then the rocks and levers to change that system. And persevere. That's probably my last one here. This is really hard to get right for everyone. I've gone through an enormous amount of sort of Yale teaching courses and sort of executive team workshops in a short space of time to give you some highlights. It's hard to get this right for everyone. And if it's not hard, then you're probably focusing on the wrong stuff, or it's not the sort of the difficult stuff that you're doing. So it is hard to get this moving, but once you get this moving, the momentum will feel good, and the speed that you can sort of pick up after you get going with practice is definitely useful, hopefully, and provide meaning for you as well. So hopefully we did the 3 things we set out to do for you. Give you some tools, get your life together on a page, and maybe give you some more thoughts on sort of how to do to-do list with purpose and anchor to your purpose. Love to hear what you think. To the extent that's easy to do, there's a bit link in there. Amy, feel free to sort of copy and paste any of the links you see here into the chat function. Probably the most important one is the bit link CBay T for G path, because that is a URL that will take you to these slides, and you'll see any of the stuff that you have got here. I'll just have a final look at the chat function at 1:29 to see if there's any sort of burning questions from anyone. And in terms of a quick question here, which I think is a really important one here, is about, is it better to keep professional rocks separate from personal rocks? And the annoying question for you, the answer here, it depends. And the key piece is like on the life on one page, if you spend a lot of time at work, which many of us do, it should definitely sort of appear in the rocks. There shouldn't be a parallel process where it's like, here's where I spend all my time, and here's what's the stuff that's really important to me. So in the case of Life on One Page, try and get those things in. Thank you, Amy. That's the link for everyone, the dynamic link that will go take you to these slides. Is that the idea is that if you look on those rugs, it's like, those are the things I want to spend time on, are important to my life. Often, but not always, you might have a work or career or calling or inspiration rock, and then the elements of that might be your separate sheet, which might be your work on one page, which you take and share with bosses and colleagues and friends, but you do the exercise again, almost like double click down. But the key piece is that your life on page, if you want to do it at this level of your whole life, that you can see all the things that are important that you want to spend time on. There isn't a parallel to-do list sitting somewhere else where you are sort of spending too much time. Thanks very much for Albert saying the link is incorrect. I think there should be a capital T in there. So it's capital CBEY. It's case sensitive as well. CBEY T number 4G path. Somebody just on chat say if it's good to go. And then I'll leave it up for a little bit while, but I'm conscious it's after 1:30. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. I do hope this is the start of a journey for you, and do keep in touch. There's various ways to do so. On the CBA website, I'm available there. You'll see me there, and the newsletter is great. Recommend that. And then follow us on LinkedIn. And Kate has just confirmed it works. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you all maybe next time for the next seminar.